phones, put down your hamburger, pay 100% attention to your driving, and pay attention to what other vehicles or motorcycles are doing around you, and everybody will get to where they need to be safely.
Is that still among the top problems or top causes of situations on the road, is just not paying attention to what you're doing? Is that true?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, that's part of it. Part of it is when we actually talk about a motorcycle, it's much smaller in size. It hides better on the roadway behind vehicles. There's more blind spots. So certainly distracted driving plays a part in that, but just the fact that it's a much smaller vehicle also plays another role.
And in that regard, some of the reaction you hear as it relates to crashes involving cars and motorcycles is, I just didn't see them.
Right. A lot of accidents occur for motorcycles versus vehicles when they're turning, right? It's not going to be a straightaway or, they swerved across the line or anything like that. Usually these fatal crashes occur while a motorcycle is turning, or a motorcycle has the right of way and a vehicle turns in front of them. Again, just not seeing them.
Mm-hmm. So when they're turning, then there's some sort of difference in their visibility or something.
Yeah, whether they disappear in sunlight or, again, behind a truck or something. And, there's a lot more cars and trucks on the road than there are motorcycles. Mm-hmm. So sometimes people may just forget about them, not look as closely. They may take a glance and not see that bigger vehicle coming towards them or in front of them, and then they just automatically, their sense is to make that turn because they think it's clear. When all reality, especially in this warmer weather, you've got to take that extra second, be vigilant, and look for a smaller vehicle, which could be a motorcycle.
Well, and also the problem is if that's a car making that turn and pulls out in front of a car, typically that's going to be a fender bender. If it's a motorcycle versus car, quite often that results in serious injury and or death. Mm-hmm. So we do see a lot of accidents in versus car at intersections, probably no more than motorcycle versus car. But when it does involve a motorcycle, it typically involves serious injury or death. So
just less to protect you.
When you're at an intersection, stoplight, that doesn't mean it's time to get on your phone. You need to pay attention to when traffic is clear, look both ways, and make sure you have a clear right-of-way to pull out.
Speaking of intersections, let me just get on my soapbox for a second. When I come in the morning, it's around 4, and the lights at intersections in town are flashing, generally speaking. So when you're driving along on Helmer at Columbia, if you're on Helmer, you've got a flashing red, so you sit there and wait for the traffic to go by. Then, as you come along going eastbound on Columbia at Capitol, as I'm going east, I have the flashing yellow, and Capitol has the red. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen it in the middle of the night, somebody barreling through that intersection who thinks the opposite way is the one who's supposed to stop when it's really them. So I come to those intersections slowed down and constantly looking because it doesn't seem to be clear who has the stop and who has the right-of-way in those situations.
And you're doing exactly right. The yellow does say slow down, use caution, proceed when clear. The flashing red, it doesn't mean slow down, use caution, go when clear. It means
stop and wait.
And wait for the right-of-way.
One time that it happened at Capitol and Columbia at that hour, the other person had stopped. But as I approached, their presumption was I was going to stop, that it was a flashing 4-way red. And they started to go in front of me. Good thing I was watching. But these little things intersections are tricky, whether it's motorcycles or not, is my point.
Yeah, Sheriff Saxton is right on the money with that. You've got to pay attention, be vigilant, and you got to be the defensive driver.
When we come back in a second, maybe we can talk about the motorcycle issue from the perspective of the motorcycle rider and the things they should know, and then the perspective of the automobile driver and things they should know as well as it relates to mingling with motorcycles on the roads. And we'll get to that when we come back in a minute. 8-6 right now, talking about traffic safety in particular as it relates to motorcycles with Sheriff Matt Saxton and Major Jim Grafton of the Battle Creek Police. So let's talk about motorcycle riders for a second. What are some of the things they should keep in mind as they're out on their bikes? And let's bear in mind, too, that it's been a while since they've been out, so I suppose a refresher is in order.
So I think the first thing as a operator of a motorcycle is that it's pretty imperative that you take some sort of motorcycle safety course, right? I know that the Motorcycle Safety Foundation provides opportunities for that. A lot of locations around the area will do that, and I believe that's like a 16 to 20 hour course that you can take, especially as a beginner, right?
Okay.
So I think that's the most important thing.
Is that required by the Secretary of State? Do we require that, or that's just additional if you want to?
That's additional if you want to.
Okay.
Through the Secretary of State, you have to take a written exam for it, and then you get your operator's license.
Mm-hmm. Is there a road test for motorcycles?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Good enough. What else should they know?
There's a lot of things. Definitely, once you take that course and you begin, ride within your skill set, right? I mean, that's pretty important. There may be 20, 25-year veterans that ride motorcycles, but they may have bad habits, and those are hard to correct. But as a new beginner, recognize your skill set. Recognize that it may take you a little bit longer to slow down. You don't primarily want to use your rear brake, believe it or not. You want to apply a lot more pressure on your front brake and then apply about 20% to your rear brake.
Easier to lose control?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you apply all of your braking to the rear brake, just understand that you're going to go into a skid, and those are very hard to control. And I speak from experience on that, So not only did I ride my own personal motorcycle, but I also went through a motorcycle instructor course through MSP, put on by the department. So I was fortunate in that aspect, and it provided me with some tools that I could apply in my personal driving as well.
Is there a difference in the mindset for a motorcycle rider who's on Columbia Avenue and a motorcycle rider who's on I-94?
Shouldn't be. The mindset should be the same, that you've got to be aware of your surroundings, right? Again, be vigilant. And you got to be very defensive. We talked about defensive driving earlier in the show, but as a motorcycle operator, it's imperative that you're on the defense, right? And allow yourself some extra room.
Well, and those motorcycles don't have seat belts or
Sure
airbags or side impact protection. So they need to be a little more vigilant on their surroundings. And a majority of motorcyclists are pay attention. You talk to them. They're concerned when they're riding. Back this month, 4 years ago, Michigan changed the law on helmet use.
Yeah.
Has
it been that long already?
It's been 4 years already. We have seen an increase in injuries, serious injury accidents, and fatalities involving motorcycles. I don't think that's just the helmet law that has caused that. There's been an increase in motorcycle ridership over the years with gas prices increased a few years ago. More people looking for cheaper transportation.
Interesting.
So as Major Grafton said, you can't just buy a bike, get your cycle endorsement, and hit the road.
Yeah.
You need to put that extra effort into training, practice time on that motorcycle. But you can't just buy a bike down the road here, hop on it, and
take off.
Hit the freeway.
I had a friend in school. His dad was a big motorcycle rider, and he was one who, if he saw somebody on a motorcycle wearing shorts and short-sleeve shirts, he would just go out of his mind. The notion is, of course, that if you lay that baby down, you have very little protecting you from the pavement and your skin. I suppose that's a whole other conversation, but you probably have thought about that too in your positions.
Well, exactly. And here in Calhoun County, primarily a rural county, and on those back roads when you're riding your motorcycle, you not only have to be concerned with other vehicles, but we have deer, turkey, all the animals,
right.
dogs, and I see throughout my career quite a few accidents involving a deer coming out, and it ends up being an injury accident if it's a motorcycle deer accident.
When we come back in a minute, we'll talk about what those of us in cars and trucks should be thinking about as it relates to motorcycles and sharing the road with them. That's coming up. 8:20. BCK, we're here talking about motorcycle safety with the authorities, the Sheriff's Department and Battle Creek Police. So what should motorists keep in mind as it relates to sharing the road with motorcyclists?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, I've said it 3 times probably already, is pay attention while you're driving. It doesn't, it's sharing the road with the whole motoring public. You need to pay attention. Make sure you look at those intersections and it's clear for you to proceed. Get rid of the distractions. And again, if it is a car versus motorcycle, those motorcycles don't have the safety equipment that a vehicle has. So what would be a normal fender bender with a car versus car, the motorcyclist is more at risk in a traffic crash. So we all need to pay attention on the roadway, pay attention to our driving, and let everybody get where they're going safely.
And if the issue is on a regular basis that the vehicle driver doesn't see the motorcyclist, I guess that just means we have to look more carefully, don't we?
Yeah, look twice.
Yeah.
Just look twice. When you think that it's clear, take a second glance and double check and make sure. So.
All right. So before you go, your department sheriff was investigating this crash this morning on I-94 eastbound at 69, and the story was indicating that it was believed the car was stopped on the freeway. Is that correct?
Yes. At this point right now, we still are investigating the accident that occurred on I-94 near the I-69 interchange eastbound. The preliminary information that we have at this point, it does appear that the vehicle was either stopped or slowly moving just past the exit for I-69. We are still investigating, and there's a possibility that that driver missed his exit and was attempting to back up to that exit.
Oh, man.
Is some of the information we have at this point leads to that possibility. It also, there's information that appears that alcohol as well was involved with the incident. So it's still an ongoing investigation. I-94 is back open and traffic is flowing at normal speeds.
Okay, we appreciate that update, and thanks as well for helping us think a little bit about our friends out there on motorcycles. Thanks to the both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's Sheriff Matt Saxton and Battle Creek Police Major Jim Grafton on WBCK 820.